Here's a fun activity. Let's name the utopia we're going to build over the next 8 weeks. My name's Junius Welch. This is Welch on Society. I just finished my first session with the Margaret Atwood Practical Utopias program, meeting with the Pacific group number 2, who will be my group going forward. Everybody seems amazing, and I'm very much looking forward to working with all of them. And as a fun activity, one of the things we got to do was name this utopia that we're going to be building together. And it brought up a lot of anxiety for me. There were a lot of reasons for that anxiety. Some of it was tech related, but some of it was the whole question of how do I know what it is? How do I give it a name before it exists? And realizing that the naming of a place is actually a really strange thing that I hadn't thought about before. So I want to talk about that just very briefly. There are a lot of places that, when you translate their names, turn out to be things like the place where the river meets, or the valley, or the place where the people live. I got to thinking about the naming of new colonies in America by the colonizers. Take Virginia, for example. It's real easy to name a place when you want to flatter your patron. Sir Walter Raleigh wanted to flatter Queen Elizabeth, so founded the Virginia colony. Called it Virginia after Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. So in that case, making a name was easy. You're one person, and you've got a very specific goal in mind, and that is flattery. And thusly, a place was renamed. The process of intentional creation can be benefited by the idea of giving an aspirational name. When naming a place, when founding a place to live, using the name can help people focus on where they want to go, what direction they want to go in, and, plant a seed, as it were. The aspirational method is excellent, and a lot of methodologies for creating a vision, a plan, use the idea of naming that thing. I personally found it quite anxiety producing. I didn't know any of the other people who were involved. I didn't know what our common vision was. We were throwing out names. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Luckily, others stepped in and made sure that it was possible to change the name going forward. And I really appreciated that idea because it helped relieve some of that anxiety. It is my experience that if I sit down to do some art, for example, I do watercolor from time to time, I sit down with an idea of what I want to create, but often the water itself changes that path. Watercolor, at least for me, is of its own mind. It's more of an interactive process for me. And so I can sit down, for example, saying I want to paint a tree, but if the water goes some kind of direction, I might suddenly realize that what I'm actually painting is a dinosaur. And I have a feeling that going through this process is going to be a very similar thing, in that as the group gets to know itself, as each individual gets to know each other, we're going to become more comfortable sharing our ideas. We're going to realize the places where we have disagreement and finding consensus. And as a result, the thing that we're generating is going to change. And what we think the end goal, what we think the point we're driving towards is, will likely change. And so revising the name can be important. So initially I wanted to wait. I wanted to put off giving it a name. see how it turns out, see what we end up creating, see what ideas come forward through discussion, see what concepts are generated. I found in my writing that the title of a piece often comes out of the process of writing the piece. And so, again, I was a little anxious at the idea. Interestingly, the name that we chose was Chrysalis. And I think that was a good name because of what I've been trying to talk about here, which is as a starting point, as an aspiration, transformation is indeed what we're looking for. I want to give a shout out to whoever it was that proposed the name Jubilee. I want you to know that I voted for that one strongly. I would have loved that to be, because there's a whole forgiveness aspect. Jubilee we think of in two ways. One is, of course, the happiness, but from a historical perspective, a quasi-religious perspective, the Jubilee was the idea of forgiving debts every 7 years. And I feel like a lot of our climate guilt and our social guilt could benefit from a little bit of, you know what, let's start over. Not necessarily forget, but certainly forgive. And give everyone the opportunity to set their sights on what they truly want, how they want to start interacting, and providing a rich bed of opportunity from which they can operate with regards to that goal. But I imagine that by the end of this, an entirely new name will emerge, and we will fight strongly for it. Ultimately, I've gotten a lot more compassion for parents who are presented with this brand new living creature and have to, in that moment, give it a name. And there's many aspirational names. There's many names that perhaps could be said to go into flattery of someone or honoring someone. But there's also the idea of the opportunity to rename ourselves as we become aware of ourselves and who we want to be. And whether that's official or just a thing we adopt, I think beneficial. It's slightly off topic, but thank you for coming with me. I'm Junius Welch. This has been Welch on Society. It would be great if you were interested in subscribing, because there's going to be more videos similar to this one over the course of the next 8 weeks. And if you're enjoying them, I'd love to see you again. Until then, so long. Raleigh? Was it Raleigh? Yeah.